Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to be looking at steppe lancers, as with the addition of Ketons and Jurchens this year, we now have 5 civilizations with access to the unit. That means we finally have enough for a top 5 video, but even more than that, it's a perfect time to break down the different flavors of the unit, summarizing the relevant bonuses and techs, as well as the slightly different time periods they excel. Even better, none of them have a discount as a bonus, so we don't even have to try to tackle the balancing resources versus pop efficiency wrinkle. To start though, I think we should talk for a moment about the unit generally, which informs the particular types of bonuses and techs that I think help the unit more than others. One way I think the unit is sometimes mischaracterized, and I may even be guilty of doing this myself at times, is framing it as a medium cavalry that sits in between the light cavalry and knight line. Certainly in terms of cost, that looks right at first, and even digging into some of its stats, like attack and movement speed, it does sit pretty much halfway between the two units, with arguably HP nudging it overall slightly toward the light cavalry side. There are two very important ways in which steppe lancers are not just a middle ground of these two units though. The first is, unlike light cavalry and knights, they have just one pierce armor and castle age instead of two. That may not sound like a huge deal, but remember they have the same HP as light cavalry, meaning steppe lancers are the worst in this group at tanking arrows. Mass archers are in fact a key weakness of the unit, and some civilizations have bonuses that address that better than others. The other major reason they don't fit nicely in this three-way comparison is their signature +1 range, which completely changes their dynamic in melee. For example, they're extra good at picking off villagers, needing just 5 or even just 4 in a group with +2 attack to one-shot a villager in castle age, with the extra reach helping to avoid any pathing issues and bumping. They're also able to hit and run melee units like pikemen on a small scale if you're careful without taking many if any hits, which is something light cavalry and knights are not able to do. For that reason alone, despite worse stats on paper, a group of 4 steppe lancers are way more dangerous than 4 knights in early castle age. That reach then also really helps on larger scales as well, and with 15 versus 15 as an example, if we patrol steppe lancers with their +1 range into another unit modded to have functionally identical stats, but without that extra 1 tile reach, the results aren't even close. So in a way, steppe lancers kind of outperform their stats on paper because of that +1 range. The extra reach is also very useful for focusing down individual sections of palisade walls, contributing to its common use as a mid-game raiding unit, and tends to be associated with Castle Age rushing, more so than Imperial Age, where they don't tend to scale quite as well. The fact is, Hussars only cost food, and can perform a similar role to steppe lancers in the late game. These are all ideas we'll keep in mind and reference as we talk about the unique flavor of steppe lancer that each civilization offers. One final quick observation to note is whether intended or if it's just for historically inspired reasons, all 5 civilizations with steppe lancers also have decent to exceptional cavalry archers, or a cavalry archer unique unit. It's a pairing worth paying a little extra attention to. With all that context, now let's start ranking the different steppe lancer civilizations, with, in my opinion, the lowest tier, the Cumans. Right off the bat, Cuman steppe lancers feel the most generic, with their differentiator being speed. That's both from a movement speed perspective, giving essentially free husbandry in Castle Age and becoming the fastest steppe lancers in Imperial Age from a civ bonus, but also because of the Cuman steppe husbandry unique tech. That doubles the creation speed of steppe lancers among other units, and remember Cumans also have a 75 wood discount on stables. There's a clear theme of being very spammable and then consistently fast moving. The problem is, that's really all they have going for them, and in Castle Age they lose to all but one other steppe lancer on the list in melee, and in Imperial Age they lose in melee against all of them, while having no extra bonus or tech to offset their weakness to archers, besides closing that distance a tiny bit faster. Thinking about the cavalry archer pairing that can work in the late game, Kipchaks are shorter range than most cavalry archers, since they lack bracer, while Hussars benefit from all the same speed and creation time boosts as steppe lancers for no gold cost. Even if you are paying gold, they're the only civ in this list with paladins to overshadow them. Again, the term generic to describe Cuman steppe lancers just feels apt, whereas for all other steppe lancer civilizations, there's at least one situation or point in the game where you could argue they really shine. Moving on, at number 4 we have the Tatars. Right away, unlike Cumans, who are set up for a prolonged feudal age with the second town center, Tatars are reasonably well set up for that faster castle time into steppe lancer strategy, thanks to their herdable food bonus. Still, the unit themselves start out pretty generic, and is maybe not the most aggressive castle age steppe lancer civ, but begin to stand out later with a unique tech giving them +1/+1 armor. Remember, they started with 1 less pierce armor than light cavalry and knights, So that's directly addressing a major weakness, letting them take 27 crossbow or town center shots instead of the generic 20 in Castle Age, making them the best at tanking arrows, while their elite Steppe Lancers also take the greatest number of archer shots in Imperial Age as well. Again though, we run into the problem that light cavalry and hussars benefit from the same tech, as a unit that costs only food feels like a better candidate for absorbing enemy arrows than a gold unit, while their Keshik is also a competing slightly cheaper unit with 65 more HP. Tatars again add in a combination with strong cavalry archers, which is obviously gold intensive to use with Steppe Lancers, but has some synergy. The main reason I don't rank Tatars higher is simply I think the other options we'll see can be even faster at getting them out in Castle Age, and are clearly a step ahead in melee. For example, next up at number 3 is the Khitan Steppe Lancer. In a nutshell, these are hard-hitting but fragile in the early game, turning into a very dangerous melee unit late. First off, Khitans have double the effect of attack upgrades, meaning just forging is enough to start picking off villagers with 4 Steppe Lancers, and you can then end up with 9+4 attack in Castle Age, making them the hardest hitting. That's backed up even more by the pasture, giving a faster gather rate than farming, so there's an implicit strong economy behind these Steppe Lancers. The trade-off is they're lacking bloodlines, which for a small group of Steppe Lancers raiding villagers or microing against spear units may not be a deal breaker, but if you're taking a lot of arrow fire, makes them actually the worst Steppe Lancers at handling that. And in fact, Khitan Steppe Lancers also lose one-on-one against all others in Castle Age, including Cumans. There's a very shock cavalry aspect in Castle Age, with a lot of extra attack, but without that staying power and durability. The flip side to that is in Imperial Age, they have a unique tech that regenerates HP when in combat, in this case giving them 2 HP per second of healing while fighting. With that unique tech, they actually beat all but one of the other elite Steppe Lancers in Imperial Age, so while durability against archers remains an ongoing concern, in melee they really step up their Steppe Lancer game, so to speak. I like them at number 3, as there are moments you can point to where they can be oppressive and more than hold their own, but with some pretty obvious weak points as well. Moving on to number 2, we have the Jurchens. They don't quite have the economy of the Khitans or the arrow resistance of the Tatars, but make up for it with the simple bonus of attacking 25% faster, recently improved from plus 20% when they were already considered quite good. That just makes them more effective in almost any situation, beating out all but our number 1 Civ head-to-head in Castle Age, and flat out beating every other elite Steppe Lancer one-on-one in Imperial. They are generic at tanking arrows, but that's not really what you make the unit to do primarily. They also work nicely within Jurchens overall, as they take half friendly fire damage as a Civ bonus, so they can be paired with Grenadiers and Rocket Carts fairly naturally. That standard Cavalry Archer pairing is also juiced a bit, with the faster firing rate also applying to Cavalry Archers as well. Not much of an argument needs to be made here, as lots of DPS is good for a melee unit isn't exactly breaking news. Of course, by process of elimination, that leaves number 1 to the Mongols. The obvious bonus here is the HP boost, having 20% more HP in Castle Age and 30% more in Imperial. Now that's not quite as amazing as it sounds, as they are lacking the final armor upgrade. However, in Castle Age, that's really not a factor. You could argue that Jurchen's DPS is better than the Mongols' HP, especially with its recent buff. But the fact is, Mongols simply beat all the others one-on-one in Castle Age, while also tanking the most arrows in early Castle Age, prior to Tatars getting their unique tech. So at least in that early window, they're by far the most well-rounded. Mongols also have their hunt bonus thrown in, making them arguably the most aggressive Civ here, with Khitans maybe competing for that title. Steppe Lancers are probably at their peak effectiveness in early Castle Age, stacking on palisade walls and picking off villagers, and Mongols being pretty clearly the best at that time period makes them feel like number 1. Admittedly, they do fall off in Imperial Age, dropping to the 3rd best in melee and the 4th best against archers, but that's also a period Mongols would be perfectly fine switching to Mangudai and Hussar anyway, and Steppe Lancers are just inherently falling off. I think Mongols end up with the best Steppe Lancers when it counts, utilizing nothing but passive bonuses. That's just my subjective ranking though, and obviously depends on which points in the game you personally weigh more than others. Big thanks to Samantha, James, Woodruff, Jared2142, Shawarma Rider, Sidon Shaw, and everyone else on Patreon for their support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.